is how to ask good questions. That's what we're going to deal with. My first question, y'all help me with the answer. Why is it important for the teacher to be prepared? By first studying the text before leading a discussion.
If you don't know what you're talking about,
You are in trouble. So this is not pooled ignorance. It's not the blind leading the blind or the bland leading the bland. You're the expert. Now, you don't want to come in and pontificate, but you are the expert for the night on that passage because presumably you studied it more than anybody else, or at least more recently than anybody else. So you got to know.
it'd be like leading a museum tour almost, right? Like you can take them through the museum, you can point things out. You probably know more about all the pieces than anybody else does, but if they have a question,
you got to have some depth.
Right.
You got to have some depth. That's it. It's great to come up with the questions, but you got to be able to answer all your own questions. That's it. Now, question 2, I don't know quite how to phrase this, but I think a good motto is never tell when you can ask. How is that motto consistent with the discussion teaching method?
You're not there to learn other people, right? It's for them. So you calling that learning out is the point.
Try to have that motto. If you have that mindset, the temptation to lecture will be lessened. In a perfect setting, you're not going to tell them something unless they just can't come up with the answer. Like if you say, okay, who knows the Greek word for gospel? Silence. Tell them. Make sense? So never tell when you can ask. That would be a good motto. Number 3, why is it a good discipline to write out all discussion questions in advance?
Because you're never going to remember them all when you're sitting there.
That's one good reason. You're never going to remember them all.
And it saves time for you to ask questions rather than thinking about what to ask.
Yeah.
since it's not a lecture, you're not going point 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, you are guiding it, but there could be questions that tend to take it down a different road.
Yes.
You could get lost really.
So it pulls you back. That's good.
You're trying to be strategic in what to teach them, but again, it's a discussion.
So it's a led discussion. It's like a guided missile or a cowboy corralling cattle in a certain direction. You're leading a discussion. You're shaping how they think. That's what you do.
I think writing it down also makes you think through how you're going to say it to somebody a little bit more. I can't tell you how many questions I've gone back and just crossed out because I'm like, yeah, that's too complicated. Nobody's going to get that.
That's right. It's been said the weakest ink is better than the strongest memory. So back to what Jeff said. It's really difficult to come up with good questions on the fly. And this is a good discipline to have. Your questions will be of a higher caliber. And it helps me study. What I do when I study is I look at the passage and I write down every question that comes to my mind about it. And then my study is answering all those same questions. So it helps me to prepare in the first place. And then, of course, I got to go back and revise the questions and make them decent. Number 4, why is it helpful to imagine how people will respond to a question and then revise the question if necessary?
I think that's a skill that is going to take time to know your people.
It assumes you know the people you're teaching.
Know your audience.
And that's right. If you never taught them before, that's harder. But if you know them, you should be able to imagine what Joe's going to say. And if you don't like what you hear him say, you need to change the question or delete it.
And it stops you from chasing those rabbits, right? Because if you can imagine, oh, well, he's going to ask this, and then he's going to ask this, and then you can kind of nip it in the bud.
That's right. You don't go down that road. Another good thing is you imagine how he's answering, and then you formulate your next question based on what you think he's going to answer, and then you're more prepared. He's not going to use your words. So you know what you're going to ask next, but if you can take the words he said and put them into your question, people like to hear their own answer said back. It really gets them excited, more excited, like you're really listening to them. So you can tweak your pre-existing question very easily when you anticipate what he's going to say. So just take the time to do that. When I'm teaching and things don't go as I had wished they did, thinking I might teach this passage again someday, I always save my questions, but I'll go through and, boy, that was a stinky question. I'll cross it out and rewrite it so the next time not like Custer at Little Bighorn, I don't get wiped out by it. It happens. Question 5, and this is related to what Eric had just said. Why is it critical to arrange your questions in a logical sequence?
I would go back to the share time Daryl gave several months ago to our young people about having a start and an end and a trail that you're going so that you're not going off in all these different places. So arranging your questions logically helps you to take the people involved in the conversation and that you're teaching from
Yes.
point A through logical thought processes to bring them to an evident conclusion you're headed towards.
We're not just asking questions for the sake of asking questions and having a random discussion. You are guiding this discussion. If you look back at those 10 test questions we had on the previous page, I arranged my questions based on the topics in the text and the order of the words in the text. My first question might be a big picture question. So look at number 1, of what was Paul not ashamed? Well, that's a big picture question. And I try to ask a question where the answer is more toward the end, so they have to read the whole thing before they turn their minds off. But see, if you ask the question before he reads it, their minds now are in gear and they're looking for the answer. So number 2, what does the word gospel mean? Well, I am not ashamed of the gospel. Now, that's the first word I chose to deal with. You could have said, well, who is I? Or what does it mean to be ashamed? But, okay, I'm going to deal with the word gospel. Now, what is the gospel message? Well, that's related to that word. Number 4, why was Paul not ashamed of the gospel? Oh, here we go. I'm not ashamed of the gospel. Here's the answer. 4, that's his next topic. Because it is the power of God for salvation. So then, number 5, from what does the gospel bring salvation? That word salvation is the next one I wanted to deal with, just going right down the line there. So first I dealt with gospel, then I talked about it's the power of God, now we'll deal with salvation. What did Paul mean by everyone? Well, see, that's the next word, salvation to everyone. So I wanted to talk about that. Why is it first to the Jew? That's the next idea, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. So see, I'm just going right down the row, either with the idea or the words that make up that idea. It makes it easy for me. And, you know, people don't want to hear what I think anyway. What matters is what the Holy Spirit moved Paul to write. And so that's why I try to do that. You can do anything you want to, obviously, but I find that easy.
I have a saying in marketing that the medium is the message. And it's not just about like arranging your questions in a logical sequence, but using your questions to set the tone for the group. So I usually start out with something really broad that everyone can participate in. And that just like sets the tone for the whole room that, okay, this is the way it's going to be. Then you can get down into like, okay, this is actually what I want you to learn. And you can get more specific too as you go down that logical funnel.
That's a good point. I failed to deal with the introduction at all in this. That's very good.
Would that tend to do the same thing if you're studying a whole passage? Like, I mean, if you're studying 3, 4, 5 verses, study the ideas in order as they're presented.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Come back to it.
Yeah, it's rare that I would teach one verse.
Right. Yeah.
But
I'm
yes,
just
I would
saying,
have a whole. That's right.
But just do the same. I mean, basically the same thing, but just with each idea that's presented, each argument that's laid out.
That's right.